It's June of 1983 again. Things are different, as they always are. The only thing that remains the same is the cries of the cicadas. The first 13 episodes of Higurashi 2020, also known as Higurashi Gou or Higurashi New, are out as of the time of this recording. This video is intended for newcomers to Higurashi to answer the confusion surrounding this show and to recommend or dissuade this and other adaptations based on their needs. I may well do a video about my thoughts on Higurashi Gou as a returning veteran, but this is not that video. The first thing to address is the controversy. Higurashi 2020 was advertised as a remake prior to its release, and we, except maybe the keener-eyed among us, were unaware that it could be anything else. After all, Studio Dean's anime was far from perfect, and this one was apparently working closely with Ryukishi 07, the writer of the visual novels. Then, episode 2 happened, and the fanbase was thrown into disarray. The very first scene of the episode essentially spoils a major plot twist of the original that did not come until the second half of the anime and the final fourth of the source material, as well as confirming its status as a sequel and not a remake. So, naturally, many felt cheated by this and took to the internet to discourage anybody new from viewing the series. Then the story progressed. "Why is my sequel 70% remake?" the same people cried, but in fact, Ryukishi himself said it in an interview with Funimation soon after the release of episode 2.
とても嬉しかったし、当時アニメを見ていた方が楽しみにしてもらえるのも嬉しいんですけど、当時を知らない方に新しく新鮮に見てもらえるのもすごく嬉しいです。もうね、近いことはかなり言っちゃったんですけれども、そろそろ皆さんもこれはひょっとしてただのリメイクではないかもしれないということはお気づきと思いますが、今後も皆さんが原作やあるいは前のアニメと比べて見ていて小さな違和感を感じたら、その違和感を単なる新アニメのスタッフのミスだろうではなく、何か意味があるかもしれないと思いながら、ちょっとその辺をですね楽しんでいただいて、日暮ならではの謎解き感をぜひ楽しんでいっていただきたいなと思っています。ですので単なるリメイクではなく、私の中では新作ぐらいの勢いで見ていただけたらなと思っていますので、どうかこれからも新しい東になる頃にを応援していただけたら嬉しいです。
So what the heck was happening? The truth is that Higurashi 2020 is not truly a sequel or a remake. Without getting into the details, Higurashi is a story dealing with time loops. In fact, it's the inspiration for many other popular series such as ReZero or Steins Gate that feature similar mechanics. So while it appears to be a continuation chronologically, the timelines we are shown in Go closely mimic the ones we've seen in the original. The information is paced in a similar way to the original, giving new viewers the details they need to grasp the amount they are supposed to. That's the key phrase there, by the way. Supposed to. Higurashi is intended to be confusing, especially in the first half. It was the same way in the original. In short, Higurashi Gou can be enjoyed on its own or as a sequel. Now that that is established, we still need to answer the question. Does it ruin the experience of the original having watched it? If you want to go in completely 100% blind, then yes it does. You can turn off the video now. Okay, those people are gone now. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Higurashi 2020 explores a different mystery from the original series using a strikingly similar setup in the same characters. The same baseline exposition is given in both. Each of the 3 arcs, spanning 13 episodes, follow the formula of adapting timelines that were shown in the visual novels with small but very noticeable difference leading up to a completely different finale. Let's discuss that scene, the one I mentioned earlier. It's at the beginning of episode 2. It essentially spoils a late-game twist of the original, but does knowing this detract from the experience of going back and watching it? Well, that's not my experience, so I couldn't tell you for sure, but personally I doubt it. It explains why the time loops are happening and places more importance on a particular character who has less attention in the first half of the original, but who turns out to play a pivotal role. I can't speak for others, but I did not like this twist coming so late in the original. It kinda takes a dump on the whole mystery thing and left me feeling a little bit cheated. I think it's more forgivable when you're aware from the start and have necessary information to put pieces together. It might give you a different perspective going into the original knowing it, but I don't think that is bad or less valid. Ultimately, the point of this is to help you decide whether to watch it though, so if this puts you off, then by all means make your own decision. If you do go back to watch the original, which I highly suggest you do, either before or after watching Higurashi 2020, I'd recommend the original visual novels primarily and then the manga secondarily. The original Higurashi is a highly introspective story with a nuanced and plotting tone that kind of just gets lost in the 2006 adaptation. Higurashi 2006 is a decent horror mystery, but probably one of the worst Higurashis. Please note that the second core of Higurashi 2020 is not out at the time of this recording, so there could be critical changes in information by the time you're watching this. I'll definitely keep you guys updated if this happens, likely with a pinned comment. Phew, glad to get that bit over with. Now I can just talk about the show. I'm now assuming that the viewers new to Higurashi watching this video have decided not to not watch Higurashi 2020, but are still on the fence about it in general. What should you expect from Higurashi, or more precisely, the 2020 version? When you hear the name Higurashi, you probably think of horror and gore, which is primarily a product of the 2006 anime's reputation. If you're expecting a non-stop throw-ride of frights and death, you could find yourself disappointed. For reference, when I talk about Higurashi 2020 from here on out, I am acting as though the original is not a part of the picture. Things I say under that nomenclature may or may not apply to the original. I am speaking like this is a standalone anime. Higurashi 2020 is a character-driven story where a friend group who on their own would be the protagonists of a slice-of-life show have their lives affected by a tragedy beyond their comprehension, and their bonds are distorted by an almost Lovecraftian force they and the viewer cannot understand. As such, each reset shows us their day-to-day lives before things take a turn for the dark. Several episodes are pure, wholesome comedy with only hints of something similar lurking underneath. That said, when it hits hard. There's a sense of unease underlying every moment that culminates in almost surreal scenes depicting horror and/or tragedy that remind us what show we're watching. You always know things will go to shit, but never exactly how. I wouldn't mistakenly invest my anticipation solely in the horrific moments of the show if I were you, however. As I said, this is a show about the characters first and foremost, and it's best enjoyed when you're invested in the characters and their dynamics. Enjoy it for what it is at any particular moment, but keep an eye out for foreshadowing and clues. Higurashi 2020 is a show that actively challenges the viewer to see through its deception to get to the heart of its mystery. Returning viewers will have more clues off the bat, but that doesn't mean it's unsolvable to you guys. Everyone in the show is untrustworthy, even the show itself. Just know to pick apart what you are presented and see what you can take to be the truth and where the lies are. You will be hopelessly confused, and that is because it's a game. You, the viewer, versus Higurashi. Even things like the ED have subtle hints begging to be discovered as part of your mission. Higurashi 2020 deliberately places us outside the heart of the mystery, leaving us questioning beyond a few hints what the mystery even is. We are shown more how the characters' lives are affected by this enigma than the detectiving of said enigma, only able to draw hints about what happened through connecting several timelines and putting the pieces together from an outsider's perspective. Just imagine some weird stuff happens in your town and you only hear about it through secondhand accounts. It's something like that. Higurashi 2020 is an acceptable entry point for the series. Personally, I'd still recommend the original visual novels if your interest for the franchise in general is piqued, but if you're looking for an interesting and unique modern anime to watch, it's a great pick. I found it easy to introduce people to the series because it is acceptable, presentable, compared to the, let's face it, jank 2006 anime, and a great casual gateway to the series as a whole. While I'm not fond of the Dean anime personally, and I'm sure that by its shows, many people grew up with it, and there is a certain appeal that is different from the VNs or Go. It has a more consistently spooky atmosphere and more frequent gore. It's also a valid entry point if that sounds more appealing to you. Just note that the characters are more watered down until the halfway point of the series compared to the other versions, in favor of horror and mystery stuffed into the time crunch. In terms of the original, the manga is a good compromise between time investment and depth. All in all, Higurashi and When They Cry as a whole is a universe that you can enter from pretty much any point and still have a fulfilling experience moving to the other entries. There's something new and different to be found in each, and if you enjoy one, I'd recommend checking out the others, even this thing. And with that, I hope you enjoyed. Please consider liking this video and subscribing. I intend to put out more content like this as well as visual novel read-throughs if that sparks your fancy. I go by Tasty Nachos, and you go by.
これが部活だったらお前ら全員ビリだぜ。